I keep playing the past few days over and over in my head, trying to pinpoint exactly where I made a wrong turn. Or maybe it was doomed from the start. The whole situation feels surreal, like something that happened to someone else and not me. But let me back up and lay out the story as clearly as I can. I'm 32 now, but I first met her, let's call her Hannah, back in high school. We were both the AP kids, constantly running into each other in classes like physics, chemistry, and math. You name it, we were probably in the same room together, messing with labs or prepping for exams. We built this easy camaraderie, and after a while, I started to develop serious feelings for her. I mean, she was smart, funny, capable. I confess, I daydreamed about her as more than a friend. But when I got the courage to bring it up, she made it clear she wasn't interested. It hurt at the time, but I respected that boundary. We kept things strictly platonic until college drifted us apart. Life took us in different directions. I stuck to my academic path, earned a degree in physics, then got a master's in data science, and now I'm doing well as a software engineer. I make a decent salary, bought myself a house in a nice area of Florida, even got a little boat. I'm proud of where I ended up. Hannah's trajectory was, well, rockier. In high school, I always noticed her boyfriends weren't exactly the best choices. One sold drugs at house parties, another was a bully, stuff like that. But I never judged her too harshly. People have their reasons, right? Then I heard she went to the University of Maryland on a pre-med track, but she ended up pregnant by a college athlete and dropped out. He never made it pro, and from what I gather, they married, had another child, divorced, and she later had a third kid with a different boyfriend. Now she's a single mom of 3, working as a nurse's assistant, scraping by. We reconnected at a mutual friends party not too long ago. It was the typical small talk at first. Hey, haven't seen you in forever, how have you been? That kind of thing. We exchanged numbers, and it seemed we'd just be friendly acquaintances catching up after over a decade. But soon enough, she started texting me more frequently. I wasn't sure if it was just out of nostalgia, or if she was looking for something else. Then, out of nowhere, she sent me a message about how she'd always had a thing for me and wanted to explore dating. I found it baffling, given how she'd shut me down in high school. It felt like a 180. I'll be blunt, I was skeptical. Part of me wondered if she now saw I had a stable life, a solid income, a waterfront house. Maybe she believed I could help shoulder the financial strain of her 3 kids. Honestly, that's how it came across. I explicitly told her, that I wasn't looking for a relationship right now. She seemed to accept that, or so I thought. We already had Friday night plans set up to try this new Korean BBQ place about 10 minutes from my home. It wasn't a date per se, just 2 old friends checking out a restaurant. She said she was really looking forward to it because she doesn't often get free time. She had arranged childcare with her mom. Dinner started out fine. We chatted about our interests, discovered we both liked Black Mirror. Neither of us had caught up on the newest season yet. We talked a bit about politics, random hobbies, the usual catching up on life stuff. We got a little carried away with the soju, which in hindsight was not a great idea. By the time the check came, we'd both had enough to feel buzzed. I offered to call her an Uber if she wanted to get home safely, but her place is about 50 minutes away. She said that was too expensive and asked if she could crash at my house to sober up. It's only a short drive from the restaurant to my place. I wasn't thrilled about it, but at the same time, I didn't want her getting a DUI or paying an insane Uber fare, so I agreed. We split the dinner bill, hopped in an Uber to my house, and once we got there, we flopped onto the couch and decided to watch the first episode of the new Black Mirror season. We were still a bit tipsy, so to be honest, neither of us was focusing much on the show. Next thing I knew, we were cuddling, and one thing led to another. Long story short, we slept together. It was intense. Not necessarily the best decision, but at the time it felt like a natural progression of the night. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I did enjoy it. But the entire time, a small voice in my head reminded me that I'd already told her I'm not trying to date. I guess that voice was drowned out by the soju and the moment. In the morning, we dressed, called an Uber back to the restaurant to retrieve our cars, and parted ways. She went home, and I assumed that was that. Later, she texted me talking about how we need to plan our next date better to avoid logistical messes. At first, I thought she was being sarcastic or playful, so I just answered with a laughing emoji. But she wasn't joking. She started suggesting future date ideas, weekend outings, dinner plans, maybe even bringing her kids around. That's when I put on the brakes. I told her, again, that I'm not looking to date right now, and that what happened the previous night was purely physical. A lapse in judgment. I apologized if she'd gotten the wrong idea, but I never implied we were dating. I made it known, even before dinner, that a relationship wasn't in the cards for me. She flipped out. I mean, absolutely lost it. Rapid-fire texts flooded my phone, calling me everything from a user to a manipulative jerk. She said I'd led her on, that I took advantage of her vulnerability. I tried to remain polite, but each text was more vitriolic than the last, to the point I couldn't keep up. I eventually blocked her number, hoping she'd cool off. But then, she started spoofing new numbers, one after another, just to continue harassing me. The messages escalated to name-calling and vague threats like, "Don't forget, I know where you live," or "You better watch your back." I've never been in a situation like this before. It's been only a couple of hours, but the sheer volume of texts is unsettling. I had to silence my phone just to think. Now I'm stuck dealing with the fallout. She does indeed know where I live. When we reconnected, she even visited once during daylight, so she's aware of my neighborhood layout, my boat dock, everything. I've blocked her on social media, blocked her on my phone, but she keeps finding ways to text me. I'm genuinely worried she might show up. My main questions now are, how do I make her stop contacting me? And how do I legally protect myself if she decides to escalate? Frankly, I'm furious with myself for letting things get this far. I should have been more careful. Drunken hookups are never simple, and I guess I was naive to think we could just chalk it up to we were both tipsy and remain on decent terms. She clearly believes I owe her a relationship now, or that I used her for sex. But the truth is, I was upfront from the start. I told her I wasn't looking for anything serious. The soju, the late-night atmosphere, the physical attraction, it all culminated in one impulsive decision. Now I'm anxious and stressed, double-checking my locks, worried about the next barrage of messages or the possibility of her turning up at my doorstep. As I type this, my phone keeps buzzing from unknown numbers. I feel powerless, but I also know I have options. If the harassment continues, I might have to consider a restraining order or at least consult a lawyer to see what can be done. The last thing I want is to escalate legal battles, but I'm not going to live in fear that she'll show up unannounced and cause a scene, especially if I'm not even sure what she's capable of. I don't hate her. I actually feel sorry for her. She's had a tough road. 3 kids, working a low-wage job, feeling the weight of responsibilities she may not have planned for. But I can't fix her life by offering a relationship I don't want. That's not fair to either of us. This whole ordeal just confirms that mixing nostalgia, attraction, and alcohol can be a recipe for disaster, especially when the other person might have hidden expectations. I'm trying not to beat myself up too much. Mistakes happen. But I need to handle the aftermath responsibly, which might mean reaching out to law enforcement if she continues making threats. At this point, the immediate priority is to ensure my own safety and peace of mind. I've documented her messages, screenshots, timestamps. I'm keeping my doors locked and my phone on silent at night. I'm researching how to file a no-contact or restraining order if it escalates further. I never wanted things to end like this. I wanted to keep her as a friend, or at least an old acquaintance from high school. But it's clear that's not going to happen. The moment I made it clear I wouldn't be her boyfriend, something snapped in her.